Welcome back, everybody, to the This Is My Bourbon Podcast Isosessions. I am super thrilled to welcome back to the show Marianne Eaves. Oh my goodness, it's been far too long. How are you, Marianne?
I'm doing great, Perry. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful. Goodness, it's so good to talk to you after many life changes that we've both gone through over the past year.
Yeah.
First off, congratulations on bringing life into the world.
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm excited that you guys are going through this for sure. And then, as you were about to give birth to, we also found out that we were pregnant with a girl, and I'm super excited, but I'm also kind of also freaking out about the fact that there's a child that's going to be my responsibility. So as a first time mom, have you kind of adapted pretty easily to baby life, or how are y'all handling that so far?
Yeah, she's just an absolute joy. There have definitely been aspects that have been difficult. We're fortunate. She's been a really good sleeper since month 2, and we've been getting 6-7 hour stretches, and now she's almost 3 months and getting to the place where she's making all these sweet noises and smiling a whole lot.
Oh.
We haven't got to really giggling just yet, but it's just getting better and better. You're gonna love it.
Oh, I'm so excited for it. I cannot wait to get to that point. Let's talk about a couple of things. First off, you've got a brand new product that just came out, Sweetens Cove, which was in conjunction with Peyton Manning of all people. How did you wind up getting involved in this project?
2 of the owners of the golf course, Jared Poe and Mark Rivers, reached out to me through my website. Actually, no, I take that back. They reached out to me because they had been referred to me by the distillery that they were storing their product. So they purchased these 100 barrels. They actually already had the product before they reached out to me. They were looking for somebody to help them blend it because, they didn't want it to just be, something thrown into a bottle, something that's just like what everybody else was doing, sourcing some product to get started, throwing it in a bottle, slapping a label on it. They wanted there to truly be some craftsmanship behind the product. So they reached out to me. I was very interested in not just tasting, through 100 barrels of 13-year-old bourbon, because I really haven't had the chance to do that since I left Brown-Forman. And then 13-year-old was kind of rare back then anyway.
Oh, sure.
We got the 12-year-old birthday bourbon, but didn't let it get much older than that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but also just them talking about their love for the golf course itself. I'm not a golfer, but I feel like now I have to learn, because the way that they describe Sweetens Cove and how beautiful it is, the condition that it was in, as they were first discovering it, it was almost like that romantic story of preservation that felt so familiar to me in my last project. So being a part of this team really excited me.
That's awesome. It's always cool hearing how they reach out to how people reach out to others with an interest in wanting to bring them on board and make them a part of something that they really truly believe in. So that is really exciting to hear. I've been saying this on the show so much recently, and it's kind of I don't know why it's been my default phrase, but I'm so interested in trying that. Just it's really not often that you get to try 13-year-old bourbon, especially at a fairly high proof.
Yeah.
Did you do much proof gauging in that regard, or was everything pretty straightforward in terms of what you wanted to do with it?
Well, it was interesting. These barrels were entered pretty low at 115 proof, and they lost proof over time, which is not something that's been my experience. Having worked for Brown-Forman, everything increased in proof. It was extremely rare to find a barrel that had lost proof. So for every single barrel to be considerably lower than 115, that's just interesting to me. And I think, partially to do with the way that they were stored, the environment in which they were stored, which I don't know a lot about. So they were kind of ranging between 92, 93, up somewhere to 104 proof, just right out of the barrel. Well, I didn't want to take it down anymore. I
Sure.
thought that, and they were really kind of on the same page with that from the get-go, that this should be a cask strength release. Folks that pick up a bottle that's a couple $100 and a 13-year-old bourbon, they want to taste it unadulterated, we'll say, not diluted. And that's why we went that direction.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's awesome. I don't want to spend all this time talking business, talking shop, of course, because the ISO sessions were originally developed as just like a chance to kind of chat and catch up. So I wanted to kind of get that out of the way
Okay.
before we started just kind of checking in on how you've been doing, because the world's in a crazy place right now, and
I hear you.
3 months ago the world looked totally different than it does right now. But how have you been holding up during all of the coronavirus lockdowns and isolation and everything?
Well, it's interesting. We started really hearing about coronavirus, and it was starting to come into the States like in the weeks leading up to Andy's birth. So I was at my mom's house, and she was telling me that she didn't want me to leave the house, and I was like frustrated with her, like why are you gonna? Yeah, I felt like it was like imprisonment or something like that.
Sure,
but of course we didn't know how serious it was going to get. I had no idea. My sister was sending me photos of her wearing like these almost military-esque face masks. She was on it before everybody else was, that's for sure. And I thought she was just absolutely blowing it out of proportion and being crazy. So essentially Andy was born on the 13th of March, and that's almost to the day when things started shutting down. It was just wild. I don't know that I would have left the house for a couple months anyway, but really for the first 2.5 months, I just went to Target for the first time 2 days ago. I had not been out of the house to a store, nothing. Kevin and I, my partner and I, live in an RV. I don't know if you know the whole story, but we met in Lexington. The circus was in town. He owns a circus, and he's the ringmaster. Yeah. So September of last year, we moved in together, and I started on the road with them. And it was toward the end of the 2019 season, starting into the 2020 season. So we had made this game plan. I'm going to have the baby in Florida. That's where mom is. He'll just kind of drop me off with her on the way through up to, the next circus venue, because they don't spend really more than 2 weeks in any one city. It's kind of a crazy lifestyle, but I was ready for it. I knew what we were bringing Andy into, and then the world just kind of shut down. So we stayed with my mom. Kevin was there for her birth, which was insane. It was 5.5 hours from my first contraction to her coming into the world, and an hour and a half of that was us in the car.
Oh my gosh.
I was in full active labor. It was wild.
Oh my God.
But she arrived, and she was absolutely perfect. And Kevin left the next morning after she was born to go pack up the circus indefinitely. They cut their Louisiana venue short. They moved all the stuff to Texas, and that's where it sits today.
Sure.
Yeah. So the reason why I even brought up we live in an RV is because we moved from Florida to Texas, but we're able to kind of quarantine on the road.
Right, yeah.
Because we have our house, we'd stop at a gas station. He has his bottle of Windex that kills, 99.9% of everything, spraying down the pump, from top to bottom before he does gas, and then we'd move along down the road. But having all of our food in our little, contained bubble. So we got to Texas. We had plans to continue going further out west, but we ended up staying in Texas about a month, and we are going to head back there. I'm actually in Colorado Springs right now, which is not a bad place to be. But
no, not at all.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to observe the differences now as places are opening back up. Before we left Texas, the circus is parked at a little bar. They have food trucks. I wouldn't call it a bar grill. It's more just kind of like a hangout concert venue bar situation. And they were open and having, live music, and people were there hanging out, no masks, drinking, playing, what is that game where the ball is attached to a rope around a pole? I don't even know.
Tetherball?
Yes.
Okay.
With the ball attached to a tether. What is that one? Oh my gosh.
Well, no. It's all good.
Yeah, but it was just wild. And then coming to Colorado, and almost everybody you see has got their masks on and keeping their social distance, even though some things are opening up. But we drove into Denver, not yesterday, but the day before. And, I had been keeping up with news, but to actually see some of the destruction from the riots was really kind of gut wrenching to know that it's really come to the point where something drastic had to be done to be heard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's something that we've been talking about over the past week, is how long it's taken for notice to even be seen. Right. And like we have so many friends through the show who are both police officers and African Americans, and you hear every story on both sides, and it's just like, it feels just so much like everything is splintering right now, and it's scary and it's sad, and I really, I did a kind of a prelude to this episode that just came out this week, just reminding people that within our community, within the bourbon community, everybody's accepted. I mean, we're all here for each other, and we're all here to support each other, and at the end of it, we can pull out a special pour and say, let's just take 5 and just have something that we can share together that's positive, and it feels right now, it sounds so cliche, but it feels like right now we just all need to sit down together with a good bottle of bourbon and just chill out and talk for however long.
Not being on defensive, truly listening and being present with one another. It is very divided, and it's so easy to support our own bias with, what the
Absolutely.
media that we're consuming.
Mm-hmm.
Something that has been pointed out over and over again. This is happening in a moment where people are stuck inside. We've gotten used to getting our information through our devices, and we all know how much of a filter everything that we see goes through with these different algorithms and
Oh,
such.
absolutely.
So even though there are people showing up in person and witnessing and experiencing these things, we're not all receiving the same message. We don't all, get the same information about what is happening and who's involved. And what we need to do is listen to one another, listen to people that we trust, and listen to people that maybe we don't always agree with.
I 100% agree. Yeah,
Gotta get our message from as many different angles as possible so that we can come to some kind of common ground, I think.
absolutely. And I think this is it to your point about the lens that we see the world through based on how we receive information, how we receive news media. I think this is really starting to show us how important firsthand accounts are,
Mm-hmm.
and how important people's individual truths are. And it does sound a little bit cheesy, but goodness, it just, you're right. If we could just listen to one another for a little while, and it sounds very touchy feely and everything, but I think that's kind of what people need right now, is just to be heard,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what it looks like. I can sit here and we can talk about it for hours and hours on end, but there's something needs to change clearly, and I kind of, it feels like it's moving in the right direction.
There's
But
definitely been some developments that would lead you to have some hope
sure,
for justice for families and maybe some healing. Um, a lot of people opening their eyes, I think,
absolutely,
and their hearts.
absolutely, yeah, I totally agree. And again, we can talk about it ad nauseum,
Probably.
of course, but goodness, we just, I'm looking forward to when things slow down a little bit, and
Dude, 2020.
yeah, 2020. Can we just start 2020 over again? Can it just be
Redo.
yeah. Hit that Command Z and let's just, have you tried unplugging it and plugging it back in?
Right.
And
Oh, wow. There was some article, I can't remember where it was written, but it's like, in the first 6 months of 2020, it feels like we've had a decade of big events.
that's the most succinct way I've heard anybody put it
Yeah.
so far. That is perfect.
Yeah.
Oh
They just
man.
keep coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I gotta ask you too. How ready were you to get back into bourbon tasting after after the pregnancy?
After a little one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was definitely ready to have a drink that I could actually swallow. I did the blending for Sweetens Cove while I was still pregnant, so that was
Right,
kind of
right.
funny. As I knew that if I took my time, I didn't swallow it. I was constantly swishing water between samples to try and continuously rinse out that alcohol. I So I had taste, but I wasn't actually like fully enjoying it. It felt very
Yeah, of course.
clinical.
You were working.
Yeah, totally.
It wasn't a joyous. Well, I mean, in some ways, it could have been a joyful experience, but there was purpose behind it, I
I hear
guess.
you. It's so interesting. I read some books and there's lots of discussion about alcohol consumption and pregnancy and how it's seen so differently in different parts of the world. But when it comes down to it, it's basically like nobody is willing to fully investigate the potential. They only can use examples of women that kind of do it on their own. Like you couldn't have a test group and say, all right, ladies, you go out and binge drink 5 nights a week and you guys have your half a glass of wine, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah,
So, yeah. So it's kind of like nobody really knows if there's an effect to a certain point. There are correlations that can be made. Like in
Sure.
Europe, if you have a couple glasses of wine a night, it's not a big deal. But then there's also, some rare case, a woman has half a glass of champagne and her baby's born with fetal alcohol syndrome. So
Sure,
I
yeah.
took the route of being more careful. So other than work, I didn't drink at all.
Yeah.
Consumed nothing. So I was ready for a beer, a glass of
Yeah.
wine. Now I'm back on bourbon. And I've made that transition, basically just doing neat bourbon. It's fun because I have all these bottles that we were kind of like racking up on the road as I was pregnant because we were moving to all these different places. I'm like, I
Yeah.
can't drink it. So we have bourbon from all across the country, and now I get to go back and enjoy them.
That was my next question too, was, did you have a particular bottle that was kind of just staring at you while you were while you were pregnant and you were just waiting for the chance to crack it open?
There was. So I was gifted a bottle of New Riff single barrel, and I knew it was going to be special, because they sent it to me for, I think it was Women's History Month. But I really wanted to try some of that one. So I finally did get to try it, and it's warm. It lived up to my expectations for sure.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
And it might be the only Kentucky bourbon I have in my cabinet right now, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, here in the RV. At my house back in Kentucky, I have boxes and boxes of really cool stuff that I just left there. Like I'm, getting on the road when I can't enjoy any of this stuff. And if I take it with us, it's at risk because Kevin is still consuming maybe at an even higher rate because I'm not.
That's totally fair. So I think I don't want to get too into it, of course. The elephant in the room, of course, and you can talk about it as much or as little as you want.
Mm-hmm.
Was your transition from master distiller at Castle and Key to being a consulting distiller?
Mm-hmm.
How have you felt in that transition? Was it a difficult step in your career? Did it come kind of naturally to you, or where do you kind of sit with that right now? And again, I know that there's only so much that you might want to say,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna leave that up to you. I'm gonna open up the floor to you to kind of talk about what's gone on for you since then.
When I made the decision that it was time to move on from Castle and Key, it wasn't something that I necessarily thought was going to happen at the moment that it did.
Sure.
I had been considering for maybe even a year before I actually resigned that I would really like to be able to work with different brands and different types of spirits, and broaden my education as a distiller even more. I thought I could be, even more valuable as master distiller there, having a larger impact on the industry as a whole. I had already been traveling around the country a little bit with Kevin. He started in Lexington. We had like a week together, and then if we wanted to keep seeing each other, I either had to travel to him or he had to come back to Lexington for a couple days. So I get to see a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't have otherwise. And it started to kind of get the wheels turning. I was definitely in the camp with every other bourbon producer in Kentucky at the time that I was learning all of this stuff. You hear people say, yes, bourbon can be made anywhere in the U.S., but the best bourbon is made in Kentucky. And of course, the most bourbon is made in Kentucky. But I found that as I was traveling around, I'd let people know I was in these different places, and they would want to make introductions and like, we're so proud of our local distillery. We think they make great stuff. You need to go check them out. And then I might meet with, the owner or the distiller and taste some stuff that really was pretty consistently surprising me in a great way. And so it wasn't like I had a thing. There wasn't something that I knew was going to come through. I had any security leaving Castle and Key. I just took the leap. There was a little bit of a push behind it too that I don't think I'll maybe,
it's no. Yeah. I totally understand. That's why
some things are better left unsaid at the moment. Yeah.
Exactly.
But it was definitely scary, but also exciting. And I think making those transitions, taking the leap, is even more scary if you can't envision a path beyond it. But I knew that there was opportunity out there. I just didn't know exactly what it was yet. So it took, a few months to get my first client and really start working in the direction of being a consultant. It wasn't until pretty recently that I actually set up the LLC for my business. And of course, Sweetens Cove came on board. I've got a 5 or 6 clients. Many of the folks that I've been working with since making the transition have been more behind the scenes. That's what my passion is the technical side, the R&D, the processes and product development, and kind of the nuts and bolts stuff, not necessarily being the face of a brand and doing all the tastings and the road show. I mean, that was
absolutely
really fun for me. Well, I was working for Brown-Forman especially, but also, starting to get into that a little more at Castle and Key. But I felt this shift starting to happen. I felt the same thing when I made the move from Brown-Forman to Castle and Key, which everybody thought I was crazy then too. I just wasn't as widely known, so it was a smaller group that thought I was crazy. But even my dad thought I was nuts for leaving Woodford to go to this distillery that was, falling in on itself. But yeah, I really I needed some time. I could have jumped back into something immediately. I had lots of offers. We need a master distiller. So-and-so's looking for a master distiller. XYZ distillery wants, you to help them out with this and that. Or, Joe Schmo moonshine. So, but I definitely could have jumped right back on, or, it never really stopped if I had needed to, but I had the opportunity to take some time, refocus, just rest. Because having been at Brown Forman for 6 years and really 2 years working essentially 2 full-time jobs, having the R&D job and then the brand ambassador work with Woodford and Old Forester, and then jumping right into building this distillery from rubble. 4
Yeah.
years nose to the grindstone, and eventually releasing some products that I was really proud of. Unfortunately, I won't be there when the the recipes that I developed for Castle and Key hit the shelf.
Right.
But that it's just part of life. You let go of things sometimes because there's something else out there that captures your imagination, or there's a new dream to pursue.
Yeah. And I imagine in some regard too, and you talked about, that you were a little bit afraid to take that leap and everything, but I mean, goodness, it had to have been incredibly bittersweet to, take that leap before anything ever actually came out that you had created.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't easy. It was not easy.
For sure. We spent, and I know that the bourbon community as a whole spent so much time just kind of pondering and questioning and just, straight out theorizing why you would even leave. And, people were saying things like, well, maybe the product's not that good, or something happened, or, and like, there's a solace in it, hearing that, whether it's, 75%, 98%, 99.9% of the way your decision, that is encouraging too. I think that, even if you just talk, go ahead. Sorry.
It wasn't entirely my decision to
well,
leave.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you talk about, careers, you talk about getting stuck in the same career path and everything. And I think that's kind of, there's a sense of encouragement behind it. Take that leap, take that chance, go and try and do something that might change your life for the better. And it sounds like it wasn't a bad decision on your part.
Not, personally, I am so happy with where I am right now, and the people that I get to work with, and the projects that I'm working on. The opportunities that have come my way have been really exciting. And,
Of course,
having the time and flexibility to be a mom in the way that I want to be.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, going on this circus adventure, it's all really wonderful to have been able to take this journey.
Sure, for sure. We'll put the kibosh on that conversation at this point, because I know, there's only so much that can be said, and I appreciate you opening up about, your experience towards the end of your tenure with Castle and Key. So we'll definitely move on from there. What do you have next, kind of in the wings for consultation?
Yeah, so I'm working still with Hoops Vineyard in Napa. Lindsay Hoops had a significant loss of product because of these wildfires that have been happening year after year. But in particular, the 2017 fires were just absolutely devastating. So trying to figure out a way.
Wildfires seem like just a passing thought anymore.
I know, right?
I mean, like, this is the same year that Australia was basically burning to the ground.
Yeah. And remember when the entire country was on fire?
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like a lifetime ago. My goodness gracious. Sorry, continue.
Exactly.
Please continue. I'm sorry
It's
for
okay.
interrupting.
It's okay. So I've been continuing work with her, and as soon as it feels safe, I'm going to go up there and continue some work on the ground there, blending, um, figuring out some different maturation processes for the different brandies that we distilled back at the end of 2019. We had been discussing like, all right, because Lindsay was actually pregnant at the same time, and her baby was due in December. So
Oh, wow.
I got there like a week before she was due, something crazy, and we're in her kitchen blending stuff. She's incredible. And we parted ways saying, all right, you'll come back maybe like the end of April, once the babies are all settled in, and we'll get back to work. Well, with the pandemic and all of that stuff, it kind of put a hold on travel plans, but maybe it's not too far off. I'm also
Right.
doing some consulting work with the St. Augustine Distillery in Florida. I really like what they make, and I'm not really helping them with the product. I'm just doing some kind of process related consultation. It's they're a distillery that's established a reputation of quality, and what they need to do now is put just some structure in place so that as they grow, they'll have good ways to train people and make sure that processes are done in a consistent way. And, if there is turnover, that they can bring on the next people and have as much confidence in the way they're doing things as the folks that they had before. So it's basically just a production operations like training manual that we're making together. They're doing most of the work. I'm just cracking the whip.
Sure.
Yeah. And a little bit of guidance from my experience in different places. Yeah,
That's awesome.
I've got a client. Nothing's really been communicated publicly yet, but it's another bourbon that I'm pretty excited about.
That's awesome.
There's a brand, actually a hotel group, and they're across the nation, but they have a new property that they're opening in Tampa, and they wanted me to help them create a custom rum. So that's something that I've never done before, but I'm super stoked about learning about it. And I met a really cool small scale rum distiller not too long ago, and so they were the first one to come to mind in Florida. Copper Bottom Spirits. They make really nice, clean, but flavorful rum. Like it's a high quality fermentation, and they're coming out with really cool stuff. And every bottle they actually only release in single barrels, so that's kind of fun too. But I'm having conversations with them about producing this custom rum for this hotel, and I'm hoping that I can get some money to do a little R&D tripping, maybe go down to the Caribbean and
that's the best kind of research and development right there.
Like I really need to go to the source of where this rum agricole is born. So if you just put me on a plane, we'll figure all this stuff out. We'll make the best rum you've ever seen.
Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to see what is coming next. We're going to go ahead and get you out of here. Marianne Eaves, thank you so much for sitting down virtually, albeit for this ISO session. Where can people find some more information on what you're doing, social media links, all that stuff?
Like I mentioned, there's some info out there on my social media. It's Marianne BMD, Bourbon Master Distiller, for Facebook and Instagram. My website is marianneeaves.com, and there's a few things like different like my TED Talk, and there's some other like short video clips and in a contact form, which is the most important thing. Just if people want to get in touch with me, have questions, are interested in consulting or speaking in engagements or whatever, that's a great way to get in touch with me is through the website.
That's awesome. Great. And we'll post links below in the video, or excuse me, the video description, the episode description. Golly, I've been watching too much YouTube recently. But you'll find all that in the episode description below as well. Thank you all so much for listening. If you want to follow the show, it's at My Bourbon Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review on the iTunes podcast app, and then become a patron of the show at patreon.com/MyBourbonPodcast for as little as $1 a month. Once again, Marianne, so good to talk to you. So good to hear that you're doing well. Hopefully, once you get back to Lexington, we'll be able to sit down together with our babies potentially. And
that sounds awesome.
Have a couple drinks together.
Yeah, watch them stare at each other and bat the air.
not be sure what on earth is happening.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Alrighty, well, absolutely. Thank you. We'll see you all for the next ISO sessions. But until then, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast, ISO Sessions.